Welcome to the WINFL show.
Welcome to the Outer Hebrides. This is the WINFL show. I'm your host, Ian McKinnon. I'm joined by Patrick Jackson and Jake McGee. Patrick, hello, how are you?
I'm good. I've once again joined the show after a 2-hour band rehearsal, so I apologise if I'm a bit croaky, but I'm really glad to be here.
That's all right. It's going to be a shorter podcast this week, Patrick, so not so much talking. Jake, how are you getting on?
Well, I'm joining the podcast after a few days removed from watching some live music. So, it's tough on me too. Don't worry, guys.
Of course it is. Yeah. I'm sure you were probably a little more worse for beer than I was. I had a sore throat on Sunday morning, but that was it. It was all good. So, a great gig. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Classic rock night in Stornoway. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But we're not here to talk about music. We're here to talk about the NFL, despite the fact that nothing happened this week. We're still here. This is dedication. This is absolute dedication to the NFL. Because even in a week where almost nothing happened, we won't go into any rumours about gossip. We don't do that here on the WINFL show. But there was a retirement. Wasn't there, Patrick? There was a retirement. So before we go on to finish off our Hall of Fame inductees, why don't you tell us what little has been going on in and around the NFL this week?
Yeah, tough news for the Falcons. Their tackle, Caleb McGarry, retired after only 6 seasons, so barely making it into his second contract. And he was sidelined with a knee injury towards the end of last season, and that was obviously too much to overcome, so he retires at just 31, leaving them a really big hole to fill, and without a first-round pick, it would be tough sledding for them.
Jake, where are the Falcons picking in the draft? Do we know?
I believe their first pick is at number 48, there or thereabouts in the second round. So the Rams, even though they've traded a first-round pick, their own first-round pick, are picking at nice number 13, thanks to the Falcons.
Oh, that's a bit rough when you've now got a glaring need to fill, and your first pick isn't until 16 picks into the second round. But maybe they'll find something. Maybe they'll find someone. I know Jake doesn't want them to. He'd rather they just miss the pick altogether. Just miss the pick. Did you guys hear about the proposal from the Cleveland Browns about being able to trade draft picks up to 5 years?
Yeah. Turn it down to save you from yourselves, Cleveland. We know what you're like.
Yeah. Because you know what they're thinking. They're thinking, listen, we could get someone and we'll just trade the next 5 years first round picks. You're like, oh, did you not learn from Deshaun Watson? Jake, what's your thoughts on that? It's just insanity, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they see somewhat what the NBA do and are trying to kind of copy that in terms of like trading future firsts and seconds, and it gets a bit more complicated. And then, somehow the Atlanta Falcons won't pick until 2027. But the only good thing I've seen for the draft is that I believe the first round picks have gone from 10 minutes to 8 minutes. So hopefully that first night passes a little quicker, especially if you're a good team. If you're a Patriots fan, you're sat at 31 thinking, blooming hell, I just want to go to bed. It's 4 a.m. Hopefully it'll only be like 3:30 now. So, positives.
Positives.
It'll come very quickly for me because I'll be in bed by 10 o'clock.
Well, same here. The Broncos don't even have a first round pick, so I might just I don't know. But hey, they might trade back in because I reckon it's going to be a good few trades in this year's draft. Mr. Jake McGee, what are you going to say there?
Breaking news, fresh from Ewan McPhail, per sources. Falcons sign offensive tackle Jawan Taylor to a 1-year, $5 million deal per Schefter via Ewan McPhail.
That's per Ewan McPhail. We'll go with that. There you go. Jawan Taylor. Jake,
$5 million. That is a come down from getting traded to the Chiefs.
It certainly is. In fact, Jake, division rival, Atlanta Falcons. What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, is it an upgraded right tackle? Potentially. Is it a good right tackle? Potentially. Are we going to get a few extra 5 yards because he's off, false starting? Yes. So, you've got to take the positives with the negatives. I'm not overly concerned with the Falcons. So I think it's a smart pick for them. Like I say, quite a discount on kind of what John Taylor's been used to. And there's not a lot of options in the free agency. And like I say, if you're picking in middle of the second round, quite a lot of the premier tackles that are being mocked kind of around the first, second round might be gone. So it takes care of a need. Hard to kind of, be negative on the totally non-GM Ian Cunningham there.
Yeah, and we need to wait and see what the quarterback looks like in Atlanta, because we know it's going to be the Bijan Robinson show. We know this is going to happen, but we need to see what's going to happen at the quarterback position for these Falcons. It's pretty interesting. We never get breaking news at the beginning of the podcast. That never ever happens.
Yeah.
Like it was just last week, wasn't it? We finished off the podcast, and then within minutes, breaking news. Here we go. Shocking. Absolutely terrible. Anyway, gentlemen, this is part 3 of our Hall of Fame episode. Did the offense, we did the defense. If you've not listened to it or watched it on YouTube, go and check it out. It's all broken down there for you. So this is our third one. As I say, it's going to be shorter because we're going to be concentrating on coaches and we're going to be concentrating on special teams. Okay. This being the WINFL show, we are going to have a couple of special teamers in our first ever induction to the WINFL Hall of Fame. We are starting with the coaches, and the first guy that we're bringing in is Don Shula. Don Shula coached for 33 years, 490 games, with a record of 328, 156, and 6. That's 67.7%, or as the Americans do it, 0.677. I still, they call that a winning percentage. I'm like, that it isn't, but never mind. You do you. 2-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time NFL champion. He started his career with Baltimore. 3-time AFC champions, 16 division championships for Don Shula. One of the greatest to ever do it. The first coach we've inducted into the Hall of Fame, the winningest coach of all time. Wins are not a quarterback stat, but they are absolutely a coaching stat. 100% they are. So who else can we put in but the most winning coach of all time? Jake McGee, I'll throw over to you. Don Shula, a legend while he was coaching. That legend just keeps growing every single year. Let's, of course, not forget the 1972 perfect season. What do you make of Don Shula being the first guy in our Hall of Fame?
Yeah, thoroughly well deserved. Like I say, every year when the final 7-0 team finally loses their first game, every Dolphins fan just goes, well, still just us. So it's a nice kind of thing every year that they can take home with them. He's the first head coach to bring 2 franchises to a Super Bowl. And he also appeared in 3 straight, going from the Baltimore Colts to then the Dolphins in the Super Bowl as well. So just a fantastic coach. There should be no kind of surprise here that he's the first man up. 347 total wins once you add in the playoffs. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, Patrick, it's insane. It's absolutely insane what Shula did. And it's such a high level for so many years. It's not like the Dolphins, dropped off during the last 10 years of him coaching. Absolutely not. He was just phenomenal and a worthy addition into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the flawless season sticks in the mind because it comes back every year when they pop the champagne when the last team gets defeated. But the thing that sticks out for me as a Jags fan looking at this is 33 years as a head coach, worst season, 6 wins. And we've had decades where our best season has been 6 wins. So absolutely spoiled Miami and Baltimore at that time.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I believe he had, if memory serves, I did look it up. I think it was 16 10-game winning seasons, double-digit winning seasons. And keep in mind that the first half of that was when they were playing 12 and 14 games. Don Shula, just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. We're going to move on to the next guy, Jake McGee, who is the next coach in the WINFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so the first guy, Don Shula, shouldn't surprise anyone. The second guy, the Super Bowl trophy is named after. So again, hopefully not too much of a surprise for everyone. We've got Vince Lombardi, 5-time NFL champ in 61 and 62, and then 3 straight from 65 to 67, including the infamous Ice Bowl. Then followed this success up with winning the first 2 Super Bowls, 105, 35, and 6 all time. Never had a losing season. And you're pretty good at your job when you win everything that entire year, the trophy's named after you. So, and it was named after him not long after he'd won them all as well. So it wasn't like in 2010 they said, oh, we should probably name it after him. It's like 1971 they were like, yeah, this guy kind of dominated the sport for 10 years. Yeah. What do we call someone who wins everything at the peak of the powers? We'll call it the Vince Lombardi Award.
I didn't realise it was as early as that.
Yeah, it was very surprisingly early, because I was also assumed, wrongly, that it was, very later on that they updated it, but I'm pretty sure it was quite quickly after he'd, romped away with a lot of the years. That's
unbelievable. And of course, we talk about some of the great players that we've mentioned, in the Hall of Fame, and the Packers were loaded. But the reason the Packers were loaded with Hall of Fame players, actual NFL Hall of Fame players, is in large part due to Vince Lombardi getting the best out of them. I mean, the famous Lombardi sweep, Patrick, that, everyone's talking about. He perfected it, and there's the famous the quote of film room with Vince Lombardi, and he's got the sweep drawn up on the board, and he says, this is the play. We're going to run this over and over and practice it over and over and over again until it's perfect. And teams couldn't stop it. Patrick, Vince Lombardi, just unbelievable.
Yeah, relatively short career, but very high impact one. And you look at those 10 seasons and the amount of wins and the amount of championships, it's inarguable that he's a guy who should be on this list. So yeah, a lasting impact and legacy on the game.
Oh, definitely. So we're going to move on. We come to our next coach, Mr. Patrick Jackson, who is the next coach in the Hall of Fame.
Well, we go from a short tenured career to an absolutely ridiculous head coaching career. His head coaching gig at the age of 25, and had a 40-year head coaching career until he was 72, 497 games, 318 wins. Would have probably been the most of all time had there not been an annoying war in the middle of it. George Halas, of theirs, 5 NFL championships, all 920 team as a kicker as well, 2 times coach of the year, which doesn't sound like a lot over 40 years, but just the sheer impact on that Chicago franchise is phenomenal. And there's a reason his name's still on the uniform and will be there in perpetuity, I think.
Oh, definitely. And also the NFC trophy, the NFC Championship trophy, is the George Halas Trophy. So, I like Jake said with Lombardi, if they're naming trophies after you, you've done something right. And George Halas, Papa Bear, as they called him, just a legend. As Patrick mentioned, they've got the GSH on the arms of the uniforms for George Halas. He was the Chicago Bears for decades. And just an incredible coach. We're going to move on. We come to the next guy. The guy who a lot of people thought would catch Don Shula in wins. He coached for 29 years. It's Bill Belichick. 467 games coached. A record of 302 and 165. That's 64.7%. 6 times Super Bowl champion. 3 times AFC champions. So 9 AFC champions in total. 17 division champions. As a head coach, let's not forget, he also has 2 rings from his time as a defensive coordinator with the Giants. Arguably the greatest defensive-minded coach of all time. He famously was the head coach of the Jets for a day and then retired on a napkin. Jake McGee, Bill Belichick has seen and done it all. Arguably the greatest historian of the game. We mentioned this before when they did the 100 years of the NFL. Bill Belichick was the man that they had telling them about, and he knew everything about every single person and player that they spoke about. There was absolutely no doubt that Bill Belichick was a first ballot WINFL Hall of Famer, the way it should be.
Yes, we are correcting a wrong. Maybe one of the main reasons for doing this Hall of Fame is to correct such an egregious wrong. And, Bill Belichick was not without controversy, certainly was without some drama along his way. And towards the end of his career, made some interesting draft picks. I particularly enjoyed the kind of COVID draft years where his dog seemingly was making the picks in the kitchen. So towards the end, it got a bit messy. But there's, absolutely no doubt that, like you said, one of the best defensive-minded coaches of all time. Loved special teams as well. He was a big fan of kind of the 3 phases of football. And yes, WINFL have corrected a huge wrong here.
They have, Patrick. We have, I should say. Not they have, we have. We're the WINFL.
Yeah.
We have done it. I mean, when you retire as a coach and you have 8 Super Bowl rings, more than any other person, player or coach at all, and you're just known as being a great student of the game, a great teacher of the game, and having discipline amongst your players like no one else had ever done. What else can you say about Bill Belichick?
Yeah, he maximised the capability of his rosters. If the mentality of the players on the roster were right, and if they weren't right, they were out the door very quickly, and that built a perennial championship contender. And it was a very easy decision to put him in my coach nominations for this because it's just so consistently good for so long. And you can argue whether Brady made the coach or the coach made Brady. It was the 2 combined that made it so great. And Bill's scheming was at an elite level. He very much deserves to be here.
He certainly does. Now, Jake, who is the next next coach in our Hall of Fame?
Yes, a head coach who coached one team as a head coach, but he did it for 23 years, between 1969 and 1991. We are, of course, talking about Chuck Noll, a 4-time Super Bowl champion as a coach, Super Bowl 9, 10, 13, and 14, the all-70s and all-80s coach. Now, if you've kind of been watching over the last couple of weeks, we've inducted half of his team over the last 2 weeks. The Steel Curtain and those Steelers were very good, and they were very good for a reason. Their coach had winning records in 15 of his final 20 seasons. He never lost a Super Bowl with his Steel Curtain, which, he won, I think, was it 4 Super Bowls we mentioned? Second all time, never lost a Super Bowl though, which has got to be a pretty good thing to have on your resume. 209, 156, and 1 all time. He was the 14th head coach for Pittsburgh, and maybe foolishly was recommended to Art Rooney by Don Shula himself. So maybe something he learned to regret down the line, thinking, man, why did I do this to myself? I would have won more Super Bowls if I didn't recommend this guy.
I mean, absolutely, Patrick. John Shula should have said, I'll give you a job as a coordinator or something. Chuck, why don't you stick with me and we will just utterly dominate. Those Steelers, Jake's mentioned it, 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons. It's just, back-to-back, 2-year gap, back-to-back. That Steeler defense that we've spoken about is incredible. Chuck Noll, what a guy.
you don't keep good coordinators very long, do you? And it's that team in the 70s that really makes this record. As Jake said, the 4 Super Bowls, it tailed off a little bit towards the end, but not to an extent that damages the Hall of Fame resume. I think it's a similar career arc to Mike Tomlin, but with a much broader period of success for that whole decade.
Yeah. So who is the next coach in the Hall of Fame, Patrick?
So our final coaching inductee, a similar one-club man in terms of his head coaching, certainly. 29 years with the Dallas Cowboys, who got him from the New York Giants, where he spent 6 years as defensive coordinators. It's Tom Landry. Took them to 2 Super Bowls, won Coach of the Year in 1966, and really, the word dynasty, I think, is what started to be used in this sort of period with this sort of team. And yes, it tailed off and went on a little bit too long. And there's a really good Jack will get a 9 video about the demise of the Landry era and how it tailed off to a 3-13 end. But despite that, he still managed a 250 to 162 win-loss record. And yeah, there's that period from the mid-60s to towards the end of the 80s where they were winning Super Bowls and winning the division and 10-win seasons, on and on and on. So yeah, he had a massive impact on the game for a couple of decades, and it's well worthy of a nomination, I think.
Yeah, and Jake, Tom Landry, Patrick's covered pretty much everything about this guy, but one thing I did want to mention, he had the most recognizable silhouette of any coach out there with that hat on the sidelines. NFL films have probably got acres of film just with Tom Landry's silhouette there. I mean, he was, as the Cowboys, where it became America's team, and they did, they were the most famous team in sports. Tom Landry was essentially the poster guy for the whole team, and he basically became America's coach. What a phenomenal career this guy had.
Yeah, I mean, 20 consecutive winning seasons. You don't do that by accident. You don't do that by fluke or, by your players being good. 20 consecutive years. And Patrick mentioned kind of the impact he had on the game. Well, he kind of innovated the 4-3, innovated the flex defense with the doomsday defense. So it wasn't just as a coach, but also as kind of an innovator. We talk about Bill Walsh and other coaches that, changed the way, the Shanahans, but also Tom Landry on the defensive side had a big impact on how the defense is played still today.
Yeah. Now, some people might be saying, hang on a second. All you guys do is bang on about how great Bill Walsh was and how great Mike Shanahan was, and you all love Jim Mora, which is true. But, they're not in our first ballot because we could only pick 6 coaches. And you can't, if I wanted to put Bill Walsh on here, who am I leaving off the list? And it's just, I couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. These guys are all legends. And as we add to this list of coaches, more names will be going on. Legends of the game. This is not to say that a second ballot guy isn't as good as a first ballot guy. Just, it had to be done. Had to be done. But we're going to move on, gentlemen. We're coming now to our special teams players. Now, in this case, we did not have 6 special teams players. Patrick's shocked by this. We had 4. 4 special teams players. Not because we don't like special teams. I'll tell you something. The names that we threw out are very different from one another. It's completely different. Apart from 4 names.
That's where they came from.
These 4 names are the only ones that we all mentioned. That's why we've done it. So we're going to start with the first guy. Brian Mitchell. This man, in his career, returned 463 punts. That's an NFL all-time record. For 4,999 yards That's an all-time NFL record. He had 9 punt return touchdowns. He returned 607 kickoffs. That's an NFL record. For 14,014 yards. That's an NFL record. 4 touchdowns. And yet somehow he only made 1 Pro Bowl and 1 All-Pro season. 1-time Super Bowl champion. Brian Mitchell is arguably the greatest kick returner of all time. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, hang on a second, because someone we're going to mention a little later on, you could argue that he is, because they have more touchdowns. But you cannot argue with consistency and the longevity that Brian Mitchell put in. Jake McGee, he's the first guy on our special teams list. Kick returner, punt returner, Brian Mitchell. Take it away.
Yes, you can't have all those accolades, all those records, the most of the most, and not be inducted in. And maybe the best stat for anyone is to be second to Jerry Rice. And for the all-purpose yards, he is second to only Jerry Rice. And most that is the kickoffs and the punts, because he, like you said, did it for so long and did it so well. But he did play offense as well. But yeah, second to Jerry Rice. That's probably what I would bang on about most and be like, oh, who do you think's got the most NFL all-purpose yards? Jerry Rice. Oh, yeah, right. Who do you think second? Emmitt Smith? No, me. I'm second.
I wonder where I'll need to look it up where he ranks, because he was a running back. He wore number 30. I'll need to look up his actual rushing yards total to see where he ranks in order to be second all-time all-purpose. Patrick Jackson, Brian Mitchell was phenomenal for so long, just so consistent, yet he didn't have all the touchdowns. But what he seemed to do was take every single kickoff at least 25 yards, and every punt seemed to go for at least 10 to 15 yards. It just felt like you couldn't stop him from getting those yards on every single return. Brian Mitchell was just unbelievable. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's invaluable for an offense, all those short fields, and 9 out of 14 seasons with over 1,000 yards just on kick returns is a phenomenal return. And who knows, in 15 years' time, we might be talking about Chimere DK in a similar vein after his rookie season performance. But yeah, Mitchell was phenomenal and well deserving to be the first guy in.
Certainly. Now, Jake McGee, we're going to move on to the second player selected for our special teams. And who is the second guy on our list?
Yes, a name that you resisted spoiling. But, spoil no more. It is Devin Hester, a 3-time All-Pro, a 4-time Pro Bowler, twice the kickoff return leader, twice the punt return leader, 3-time Special Teams Player of the Year, part of the All-2000s and the All-2010s team, most career return touchdowns with 20, most career punt returns touchdowns with 14, most return touchdowns in a season with 6. He had 7,333 kick return yards, 6 touchdowns, 3,696 punt return yards with 14 touchdowns, and the only player to return the opening kick of a Super Bowl for a touchdown. Most of this we already know, but Devin Hester, not a great wide receiver, but one of the best to ever return a ball in his life.
Oh, absolutely. Patrick, Devin Hester, we've all seen Devin Hester highlights. We all watched that kick return in the Super Bowl. Something he called like 2 days beforehand, and he said he was going to do it on television, and everyone's like, yeah, okay. And then he did it. And he just seemed to be the guy that every time you played them, it's like, just don't kick it to Devin Hester. Why did you kick it to Devin? Oh, he scored. Why are you doing this? And he did it, right? As Jake says, right up when he was with the Falcons. Is that when he finished his career, with the Falcons? He was just an incredible player. Oh, Baltimore, I beg your pardon. And just an unbelievable return man. And one of the fastest guys I've ever seen, Devin Hester.
Yeah, in your defense, it was 2 seasons with, 1.5 seasons with the Falcons and then ended at Baltimore. So, yeah, he's a guy who can be summed up in the word electric, I think. And it's a mark of a Pro Bowl player that he changed how teams played against his team. And if you're good enough to do that, you're good enough to be in the Hall, I think.
You certainly are. Just for reference's sake, by the way, I just checked. Brian Mitchell in his career had 1,967 rushing yards and 2,336 receiving yards. I mean, that probably is outside the top 500 of all time.
2 seasons of his fraternity.
Yeah, and yet he had all those return yards. Just ridiculous. We're going to move on to the next guy on our list, Patrick Jackson, who is the third special teams player inducted into the WINFL Hall of Fame.
This guy is a 3 times All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, all 1980s team, all 1990s team. He played for the Saints for 13 years, for the Falcons for 8 years, for the Chiefs for 2 years, for the Giants and the Vikings for a year each. 25 years in the NFL, from the age of 22 to the age of 47. It is the incomparable Morton Anderson. Leads the NFL in precisely one category, and that category is games played. 382. Made a ridiculous 565 field goals, 849 extra points with an extra point percentage of 98.8, which over a 25-year career is pretty phenomenal. And just if you were going to induct any kicker, it pretty much had to be this guy. I don't see any way around it. Even in his 47 years, the 47th year of his career, he still had a field goal percentage of 89.3. Ridiculous.
Jake, when people talk about kickers, they often think Adam Vinatieri because of the Super Bowls, the memorable kicks made it through, and rightly so. Vinatieri was a phenomenal kicker, and they think of the long kicks. We won't talk about Justin Tucker, but Brandon Aubrey, long kicks. Your man in Jacksonville, Patrick, long kicks. Morton Anderson was the epitome of a consistently excellent kicker for a quarter of a century. There's nothing else I can say about him, Jake, but what can you say about this guy?
Yeah, most consecutive games scoring with 360. Most players can't even dream of getting close to 360 games ever, let alone scoring in every single one of them. You have to be special to go from the Saints to the Falcons and then end your career with the Falcons and still be in the Saints Ring of Honor, the Saints Ring of Hall of Fame, the Louisiana Hall of Fame. You know you're damn good if we forgive you for going to the Falcons. And he still is the Saints all-time leader in scoring as well. So phenomenal player to the point where you kind of take a blind eye to the fact that he played for the Falcons as well. We just ignore that. But just, phenomenal, and longevity really does play a part when it's that long.
It does. And Patrick, what did you say his percentage was on extra points?
98.8.
98.8.
Had 849 successful out of the 859 attempted.
10 missed.
I've seen guys miss 10 in one season. Come on, are you out of your mind? That is 10 missed extra points in his entire career.
I wonder how many of those 10 were down to like botched snaps or something.
Probably 9 of them. Or a guy leaping over and blocking it. It's just the consistency is just unparalleled with Morton Anderson compared to anyone else. And that's the reason he's the kicker. And there's loads of great kickers out there that we could have picked. As I say, Vinatieri was there. Gary Anderson, another guy who just seemed to be there forever. But Morton Anderson, he just stands head and shoulders above everyone for consistency. And that's what you want in a kicker. You don't want to be trotting at your kicker and going, is he going to make this extra point? If it's Morton Anderson, yes, he's going to make it. Don't worry about it. We move on to the final inductee into our WINFL Hall of Fame. And it's not a return man. And it's not a kicker. So you can already guess where this is going. It's Ray Guy. 14 years, 7 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro seasons, 3-time Super Bowl champ. He led the league in punting 3 times. Everyone knows he was drafted in the first round by Al Davis. Like, what? But a little known fact about Ray Guy, and I will hand this over to you, Jake, because this little known fact concerns your Saints. John Madden was talking about Ray Guy, and he was saying that they were playing the Saints in the Superdome, and Ray Guy was complaining about what they call the gondola, which was up at the top of the Superdome, and he says it's in the way. And of course, everyone's like, what are you talking about? This isn't like the Jumbotron in Dallas. The gondola is a lot higher. Ray Guy hits the gondola with a punt. The refs go, up, stop the play. Do it again. And he hit it again with the second punt. Nobody could kick. When Ray Guy kicked in Denver, that thing was going into the stratosphere. He had a hang time of like 9 seconds. Jake McGee, Ray Guy is the greatest punter of all time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's got an award named after him, which is a theme of the Hall of Fame inductee from us, the Ray Guy Award. And, to be drafted in the first round, it normally, when you get drafted in the first 3 rounds, basically, as a kicker or a punter, it's a death sentence because you can never live up to the hype. Why would you spend a high draft pick Tampa Bay on a kicker? Why would you do it? It's not going to work out. Well, Al Davis was known for being, thinking outside the box. And it paid off a few times. It certainly paid off with Ray Guy. Like I say, hated playing in a dome, basically. Let him play outfield. He's a purist. He would have loved playing Buffalo in January. All these modern stadiums, he would hate. Everyone obsessed with a dome and weather. Like you say, the Jumbotron, or imagine the Colts, he'd probably just kick it through the slat in like the Lucas Oil Stadium. So if you're going to induct a punter, which, of course, on the WINFL show, we were going to induct a punter, this should be no surprise.
It is no surprise. And Patrick, Ray Guy had one of the weirdest kicking motions for a punter. You see a lot of punters, probably most of them, lean back as they're punting. And they get a lot of air under the ball. You lean back and you sky it. Ray Guy didn't. He stood straight like an arrow and basically just did the splits. And his kicking leg went right up to his shoulder. It was unbelievable what this guy did. Ray Guy, first, maybe the only punter we'll ever have in the Hall of Fame. Who knows? But what do you think, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, 44,493 punting yards, 1 season with a yards per punt average less than 40. Not even one of the top 50 worst Raiders first round draft picks, despite being a punter. I mean, yeah, your hat's off to him because that is a career that deserves his nomination.
Do you know, when you say it like that, you're absolutely right. The Raiders have had a lot of first round picks. And he's one of the best they've ever had. He's a punter. So, yeah, Ray Guy. Gentlemen, that wraps up our 2026 Hall of Fame class. It's done. So what I'm going to quickly do is just read you through the coaches and special teams players again. For the coaches, we have Don Shula, Vince Lombardi, George Halas, Bill Belichick, Chuck Noll, and Tom Landry. And for our special teams players, Brian Mitchell, Devin Hester, Morton Anderson, and Ray Guy. That is the class of 2026 wrapped up. Now, because there was no news, this is a much shorter podcast. Much shorter. But we do have time for one final segment, which is, of course,
Random stats.
Now, who would like to go first? Jake's already got his hand up. He's got his hand up. Jake, what is your random stat?
Yes, one that I'm going to follow on from last week. So last week I had the most different rookies starting in 2025, and which team, with it being the Browns, had the most, and the Rams only having one the least. This week we're going to focus on most rookies to play in a game in 2025. The Browns, unsurprisingly, remain top. They had 16 rookies to play in a game. The Super Bowl champion Seahawks, maybe surprisingly when you see some of these top teams, had 15 rookies playing, same as the Jets. And then tied in fourth place were the Patriots, Vikings, and Titans with 14. Now, the teams with the fewest rookies to play in a game, the Steelers and the Broncos only had 8. And then the Falcons, Lions, and Rams all had 7, bringing up the rear. You can see kind of the F them picks from the Falcons and the Rams, and the Lions trusting the old guard. But looking towards the draft and talking about rookies, just a follow-up on last week's random stat.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jake. Enjoyed that. Patrick, why don't you go next?
Absolutely. Before I do my random stat, I just want to say, last week I spent half the show trying to work out what was on the arm of Jake's chair, and finally figured out it was an apple and a banana. The banana and the apple are still there. The banana is slightly browner. I'm starting to get a little bit worried, but I'm glad to see some consistency on the show. That's nice. My random stat was inspired by Chelsea 7, Port Vale 0, which I watched on the weekend, which was a quarter-final of the FA Cup, and it got me wondering what's the highest points differential in a quarter-final equivalent of divisional round of the NFL. So I went looking all the way back to 1970, which was the first time they had this structure. There weren't 2 rounds before it. Before that, it was just 2 games. So, in third place, Tampa 0, Cowboys 38, 1981. In second place, LA Rams 7, Washington 51 in 1983. And in the lead, by quite a distance, Dolphins 7, Jacksonville 62, 1999, 55-point differential, the biggest win in the divisional round.
There we are. I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you, Patrick. So my random stat concerns special teams. And it actually concerns punt returners. So the youngest person to lead the league in punt return yards in a season, well, the youngest age, I should say, is 21. It's happened a multitude of times. But the last time a 21-year-old led the league in punt return yards was in 2011, and it was Patrick Peterson for the Arizona Cardinals. And then, of course, it got me to thinking, who's the oldest guy to lead the league in punt return yards? Well, the age is 32, and it's happened twice in the history of the NFL. At least the last time it happened was in 2015, where a 32-year-old Darren Sproles for the Philadelphia Eagles, that's right, led the league with 446. He actually led them the year before as well at 31 with 506. But the first 32-year-old and tied the oldest guy to ever lead the league in punt returns was a gentleman by the name of Greg Pruitt in 1983, who led the league for the Raiders, and kind of aptly, he led the league with 666 return yards. And that is my random stat.
What a bombshell to end the podcast on with that number.
Hey, we had Iron Maiden at the Rock Night. We had Number of the Beast. I couldn't not do it because of that. So there we are. Now, the only thing that we're really looking forward to now, guys, is the draft. It's the NFL draft. So what we're going to do, Jake, we were talking about this before. We're going to have our full WINFL mock draft the week before the draft, or leading up to the draft, I should say. We'll do that. But we are also going to have Jake McGee's mock draft. The only mock draft that anyone needs to actually look at. It'll be the most accurate one. It'll be essentially perfect, won't it, Jake?
Oh, yes. When you see all these random trades, you'll know for certain that they're 100% going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And totally not just made up in Lululand.
No. So that will be a separate thing by itself. It'll be Jake McGee's WINFL mock draft. And then, as I say, we're going to have, in the week before the draft, we'll have the actual WINFL mock draft, which will involve the three of us selecting. And because of that, we won't know who's going to be available. That's always fun. That's a good thing. So we'll be doing that shortly. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. We don't really have anything else to talk about because nothing else has happened in the NFL. Unless there's any more breaking news. Any more breaking news? No?
Well, you reminded me. You reminded me that last week, obviously, we had the breaking news. And then we mentioned that last week we had the breaking news. But we didn't mention what the breaking news was.
And that's right.
For a man who spent his entire career being overlooked and overshadowed and underappreciated, it feels a bit harsh. So I don't want to put Patrick on the spot. But I'm hoping if I stall a little bit, he'll be able to get the details up about a former first overall gentleman who got paid. And I have to say, when you look at the contract, a pretty well-balanced contract for the team themselves, especially when you compare it to the contract of the guy that went second overall and everyone talks about, who is Aiden Hutchinson. So, Patrick, I've hopefully bought you enough time.
Yes, Trevor Walker, 4 years, $110 million contract extension, including $77 million guaranteed. He slots in just behind his teammate Josh Allen on $28.25 million a year in the edge rankings, in the same sort of ballpark as Trey Hendrickson is on 28, Brian Burns 28.2. He had a down year last year, I think, due to a couple of injuries, but he, before that, had a couple of double-digit sack seasons, and he's not like a massive 20-sack a season threat guy. He is a guy who contains the run really well and is valuable from that perspective. And yes, a few pressures and a few sacks in there as well. It's interesting to see the Jags investing so heavily on two key edge pieces. You don't see many clubs with like 55 million invested in two premier edge guys. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But I think they get Walker on a deal that is good value now and will get better throughout the contract as other people slot in ahead of him, because you would have thought the way contracts escalate, he'd be slotting in ahead of Hines Allen. He was a higher invested draft pick, but slots in behind him. He seems like a humble, down-to-earth guy you'd want in your locker room, so I'm delighted they've locked him up long-term, absolutely.
Well, yeah, you talked about contracts, Patrick, and Jake, I can't remember. Did Aiden Hutchinson sign has he signed a contract extension?
Yeah, I want to say it was like 180 million. It's like 40 a year. You know, it's big money. And, not saying he doesn't deserve it, but, double-digit sacks are nothing to sniff at. Being good in a run game, it isn't sexy, but it's very, very needed. And, you think of the teams with the best kind of duo edge rushers, and you think, Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. You think of a few, but people so overlook, and I don't know if it's because, Jacksonville, but they so overlook the fact, Hines Allen, who's been great for years, and Trayvon Walker, who has quietly been very good. And when he was coming out, it was, do you want the finished product in Aiden Hutchinson, or do you want Trayvon Walker, who, is only going to get better? And that's what the Jags are banking on here, that he's going to keep getting better and keep improving. And, if you give me someone who's going to get 10 to 12 sacks a year and stop the run, I'm pretty happy to pay them what they're paying Trayvon Walker.
Yeah, it's a
right.
good one.
Hutchinson got 4 for. Sorry, you're right. Hutchinson got 4 for 180. So you got Walker and 70 million cap space basically over 4 years.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty nice. I like that. Well reminded there, Jake, and that was some top quality stalling. Some top-notch stalling. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Gentlemen, that is the end of our podcast. I keep saying this is a short podcast. We're nearly 50 minutes long. Unbelievable. That is the end of our podcast. A huge thank you to Mr. Patrick Jackson. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Big thank you to Jake McGee. Thank you.
Might take up filibustering, but thank you.
Would that be filibustering?
Maybe.
Filibustering? Yes. Filibustering. It's such a weird word.
Such a weird concept.
It is a weird concept. I was watching an episode of well, it wasn't an episode, it was just a video on YouTube of, you know, that Last Week Tonight with John Oliver fella over in the States, and it was talking about filibuster, and he was trying to explain it. Of course, my brain's just going, what? That doesn't make sense. How can you do that? Surely someone would just say, shut up. There was one, I swear to God, there was one. It was a clip of a guy who was reading from a Dr. Seuss book. Like, I think it was Green Eggs and Ham. What? What's happening here? Very strange, but we shouldn't talk politics here on the WINFL show. Not with the way things are going in the world right now. Oh my word. Anyway, that is the end of our podcast. Thank you to the guys. Thank you to everyone listening at home. Don't forget you can find us on X at the WINFL show and find us on YouTube. Like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Please, it only helps us. And we'll see you on next week's edition of the WINFL show.
And we're clear.